Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our deep dive into this radical feminist book in order to grapple with their ideas and provide rebuttals and solutions so that Muslim sisters can have some narratives that will help them to process and make a decision about the information they're hearing from these feminist types. And I have spent a lot of time on those feminist forums, communicating with them. I get blocked by a lot of them, and it's not, I'm not raging at them, but they really just, like, one woman almost blocked me because she said she doesn't like to shave her legs, and I said, no, I like the feeling of shaved legs. It was crazy. Like, these women are very, I think, traumatized by bad actions of men, and they actually hate the female nature and femininity in a way. And so, by reading this book, maybe one of them will come across this and hear what another side is, because they seem to really shut out people, and maybe they'll hear what a Muslim woman has to say. Because I don't see a lot of Muslim sisters tackling the feminists. I do see a lot of liberal hijabis trying to be feminists, and the only Muslims who speak up usually against it are men. And I want to be part of the movement against them. So let us continue, okay? I will change some of the words to be more PG because, you know, she uses graphic language for effect, which I understand as a writer. But just for the sake of not being excessively vulgar, I'll change some, okay? Let's begin. Bismillah. Women actively wanting to F men is not at all heteronormative. That's why any active display of straight or queer female desire still has the power to shock on a political level and startle on a personal one. Okay, so active display of female desire. She throws in queer, but who really cares about that? She always gotta put in something weird. She loves pitting all the groups against each other. But the thing about active display of female desire is that it is a sort of danger. You know, the ethics of a hypersexual woman are unsafe. I, as a woman, know a lot about women, right? And if women were honest, if they were honest, they would know that those who go to bed really easy and are hyper, naughty, they're just really in your face, very pornish, those are not people you want to invite anywhere near your loved ones who are males, right? You don't want your brother bringing home a girl like that. You know what that chick's up to. But there's also like a female sisterhood underneath where you're like, I can see what you're up to. Do your thing, but stay the hell away from my loved ones, right? It's just very dangerous. Still has the power to shock on a political level. Given what's going on in the world beyond our bedrooms, it might seem like the wrong time to be talking about desire, beset, as we already are, by the swivel-eyed patriarchs. Okay, swivel-eyed? So when your head's on a swivel, on a swivel like that, rubbernecking, and obtuse old men. Obtuse old men. She's really getting mad at a patriarchal figure and elderly figures helping women to not just display their sluttiness, right? But as someone who didn't really have any type of guidance, you're totally free range. Like, you can literally do anything you want and no one cares. It is not freeing. It's very bizarre when you look at it in retrospect. You want someone to care. You want, like, I don't have a connection with my dad. And it doesn't matter how many internet dads, like, I have Mufti Menk or I have male role models, right? Or wife sheikhs. But your dad is like, you want him to care about what happens to you, right? To give you wisdom against men. Be like, hey, don't mess around with these dudes, this, or that. You want that lion to protect you. I mean, my dad brought me around. I remember there was one pedo, I'll say it like that, brought me to a studio where he makes music, right? And left me alone, I'm a minor, with this guy. And this guy offered me alcohol and was like, I won't tell your dad. And I sat there in a chair like, no, I knew what vodka was. I knew what alcohol was because there was a lot of alcoholics in my family. So I was a smart young kid. But this guy who looked like, was a white guy with a beard. He looked like, there's a brand of towels called Brawny. He looked like that, like a lumberjack in a way. And I was like, thinking back, now that I'm older, I was like, where the hell was my dad? Like, my dad was upstairs in his studio, probably touching women and getting high. And he left his daughter alone with grown men. And when there's drugs and alcohol in the building. Hello. Hello. I mean, it's wild. Absolutely wild. I mean, I'm not going to share everything because I'm not trying to trauma dump. But when these feminists are attacking, you know, old men caring about women and being like, cover up, you know, trying to have this safety net, you're like, ladies, you're young and you're traumatized and you think a man being protective over you or something is bad. Like, there's some ignoramus men out there, no doubt about it, you know? But sometimes it's good to hear an opinion, you know? But don't chase away the guardians of women, because then these same feminists complain, oh, who's going to protect us from the men dressing as women and going into our spaces? Who's going to protect us? You know, we can't defend ourselves. And then the men will say, hey, you know, you voted for this, you asked for this, so you made your bed, now sleep in it. So I think these feminists claim to be helping women, but you don't. I often wonder why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just allowed me to live, like, survive my childhood, you know? But the amount of dangerous men that are out there waiting to attack you as a girl is very high. And you can go on certain apps and see how many sex offenders are in your community. Violent, dangerous men who are let out of prison. And you'll realize that when Islam says that women shouldn't go out without a male guardian, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So much sense. We need good men again. It's just crazy. Who sees it as their right by birth and breeding to grab the whole world by the nethers? It's tempting to take pleasure off the table for now, to keep our mouths and legs and hearts shut. Yes, keep your legs shut. Saw a very viral video of a TikTok girl with blonde hair. It was on Twitter/X, and she caught herpes, and she was talking about how painful it is, and she'll have it for the rest of her life. If she has an outbreak, she'll have to do a cesarean C-section if she has a child, and it's going to be very difficult now for her to be with a man. And I would never, if a woman has herpes, I don't care how pretty she is, no man who doesn't have an STD should risk being with her. You know, no, you shouldn't do that. You're gonna get herpes. I don't care how careful you are. She will divorce you, leave you, and then you're stuck with an STD, and now it's gonna be harder for you to remarry. You know, promiscuity has consequences, and it's just disgusting. Yes, keep your legs shut. It's more powerful to give it really good to someone who has earned it, right? They've chosen you, you've chosen them, and they've earned it. But if you're just like, hey, there's this guy who works at 7-Eleven, there's this guy who sells weed, there's this guy who, you know, he delivers DoorDash, oh, there's this guy, he works in a bank, like, you're just giving it to everyone and everything, you're like, what's wrong with you? You're risking getting an STD and then risking a pregnancy, which only has two things. The child will be raised with no dad, you'll scar them for life, or you will do an abortion, which ends the life of the child. Because you couldn't keep your legs closed and got humped for 15 minutes. If even that. And all the trauma, the little years of trauma that you can get from that. So the men are not obtuse, okay? You should listen. But unless we talk about desire, about agency, about consent, then we'll only ever be fighting this culture war and retreat. Fighting a culture war and retreat, that's an interesting phrase. And this is a culture war where either everyone wins or nobody does. If we want to turn this battle around, we must rethink our understanding of consent. It will be difficult and it will be uncomfortable, but for the sake of all of us and for our bodies and our livelihoods and our relationships, we have to do better. We must do better than technically. Well, you're calling women to be openly sexual, right? To have a whore energy, to channel whore, lusty, you know, wild horse energy that doesn't feel safe. Like if you have a horse, feminists hate animal examples, but they really just lack the philosophical element behind metaphors and allegories. Okay? The teaching element to that. If you have a horse that when you put the saddle on and it just is constantly bucking, nipping you, it's a very bad behaved horse. Each time you ride that horse, you're gonna be like, is it gonna buck me off? Is it gonna kick me when I walk behind it? It's too skittish. I want to turn it into glue. I just don't like this horse. But versus a horse where it's like well-tempered, brave, doesn't leer up at the sound of gunshots, will try to stomp out a snake rather than, you know, rear up and, you know, have you fall off and run off into the distance. You know, there is a temperament that comes with women who are very lewd, immodest, and forward. It's a tale as old as time. I mean, so many cultures have written about the Ishtar energy. You go in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's one of my favorite because it's a very old story. And read about Ishtar, how she behaved, how she was, and how she responded when a masculine man told her no. She went to her father, and her father was like, you know, gave her the bowl of heaven, and she hurt and ruined things because she was rejected. And she was just a very whorish deity, obviously fake. But again, read that, man, because it's really interesting. Okay, so on this next chapter, I can see it's her telling a personal story about a guy in a bar. So, okay, hold on, let's see. Okay, this one, no, she's going into like Hollywood. Okay, let's go to this page. Because some of it is like, I mean, she brought up Woody Allen, who was a very evil guy, who, I heard the tapes of what he did to his little daughter, and it's heartbreaking. He molested his own daughter, and the mom, like, was like, the little girl, it's really heartbreaking, but you can find those tapes of the mom confronting Woody Allen, and Woody Allen's daughter testifying, right, what he did. And then Woody Allen married his adopted daughter. You know, he's a super creepy guy. I used to like his movie Ants that he did. He was in it. I don't know, he made the voice of Z, the character Ant. But I can't, no, you know, I won't ever watch anything or support him in any way. He's a super creepy and he should be in prison. But it's scary. So she mentions him. But let's go down a little bit. We've all got broken hearts and complicated childhoods, and survivors have spent too long being quietly directed to seek therapy as an alternative to justice. Okay, you want justice? Let's get the death penalty in. Let's do it. There's nothing sweeter, okay, than having drawn and quartered. Let's get a guillotine. Let's do pyres, right? Let's do it. Come on, let's get some, Ramsay Bolton hounds, okay? Let's make it good. This type of justice for women will shock the evil in men and provide closure. But her types and the liberals, they don't like the death penalty. They're very soft on crime. Prison isn't really justice, because they still get to live. They still get to do horrible things to other inmates. They still get food and water. They don't care what they did. You gotta make an example. That's how you get some justice. For centuries, women and children who spoke out about violence and abuse they experienced have been told that they were delusional and disturbed, that no matter how much they believed that injustice had been done, they should not trust their own memories, nor should anyone else. So gaslighting? Sometimes the way this works is simply by creating a culture in which acknowledging violence and harassment is too uncomfortable. So I noticed a pattern. Even in I had a feminist boss, and I've had several feminist bosses actually, and I knew they were feminists because they told me in the way they acted, and they were like literally cookie cutter stereotypes. But even in those workplaces, they allowed a lot of sexual talk, but from the women to the men, and that's something that I always found shocking. They would get really mad if a man said something, but I watched this one chick, she sexually harassed this younger guy. He's just a young pup, man. Fresh out of high school. And she was like 40 something. And she was the type of blonde, California, older white lady who wears a sundress and thinks she's Britney Spears, And she kept like opening up her jacket. She wasn't wearing a bra. And she was like, doing stuff, and he was like trying to like work on the line, and she was a manager, right? I didn't get along with her very well. She called me a ninja when I wore my hijab and had to wear a face mask during COVID lockdowns. She was a very weird lady, but she caused him to quit, and she sexually harassed him constantly, and female harassment, and it is a problem. And some women, they revel in sexually harassing married men. Like, they think that they have a right. Like, they'll wear tight jeans, their butts popping out. They put their ponytail really high, and they got those umbrella eyelashes and hoop earrings. And they assume, like, that because they think they're the bee's knees, that they can just speak sexually constantly at work. And that this doesn't make men uncomfortable. And, it's not harassment because they're women. It's very strange. But if a cook says something like passive, they're like, oh, I'm going to tell the manager, and he can lose his job. So I notice with these types of people, they don't ever mention females harassing men at work. They'll acknowledge some forms of women doing stuff to young boys, but they don't talk enough about the crimes of women, and I really do think that they gotta work on that. Survivors of IRP and assault routinely report having their memories and sexual history questioned by police and in court when they are brave enough to report their attackers. But gaslighting happens in social circles, in families, in relationships, wherever women, children, and queer people suffer things that the world would rather not have to hear about. Again, with the queer people stuff, one tactic the feminists do is they'll be like, women and children, and then, oh, here, put in this other group that makes you feel uncomfortable. It's very bizarre. A lot of survivors do come forward, but there's a lot of women who will weaponize fake accusations at work and during a divorce, during a breakup, okay? I saw one video I remember, shocking. This guy, he secretly was recording his girlfriend, and she was like, I'll say you touched my kid, I'll say you R-worded me, I'll say this, and she was going crazy, and she was smacking him and everything, and he recorded it, and she was literally saying that, like, and she was like, give me the Wi-Fi password, give me the Wi-Fi password, and he was like, don't touch me, I'm getting my bag, and she was like, being so mentally unhinged, which makes me wonder how these men pick these women, you know, but it's bizarre, it's crazy. So, a lot of women muddy the waters for other women. That is, because there's something about women wanting to destroy, scorched earth, a man's life if he breaks up with her. I saw another viral video where a woman, I guess they had a breakup, she took a big old butcher knife and was stabbing the guy's windshield in the car in the rain. I mean, that's terrifying. It's terrifying how many women will do the most unhinged stuff and get nothing under the law. But then feminists will talk about how, you know, not enough women get acknowledged through violence and harassment. Honestly, I think a lot of men, they are very stuck. I have very handsome brothers. I'm really afraid for them. You know, almost makes me scared if I ever have a son. Like, how am I going to protect him from other women? You know, it's strange. It is like the court system is still stuck in the past where they think women are all house on the prairie. That's another reason why I really like Greek mythology, because if you look at the story of Hercules, Hera was the wife of Zeus. Hercules is the bastard son, right? And Hera caused Hercules to go through these 12 trials, right? Do all these labors, and she made Hercules go crazy and eliminate his family. She hated him because he was the bastard, right? And there's that famous Greek saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It reigns true. Like, people of the past knew what women were very capable of, you know, when they're hurt. I mean, even today we have the example of Daenerys Targaryen. Cersei, you know, took out Missandei. That was the final straw. So Dany torched an entire area, you know. Men do violence too. But I'm just saying, we have to kind of stop with the women can do no wrong angle. If you actually want survivors of sexual harassment and abuse to be spoken about in a better way. She calls Sigmund Freud here a pioneer. I don't think so. Don't really want to read about him, so. Okay. She does mention the Me Too movement here. Sorry that there's a blank pause, but some of the stuff she includes. Okay. Let's go over here. Should be good. The abusers who are now being excused as mentally ill are not monsters, and they are not aberrations. They were acting entirely within the unhealthy value system of a society that esteems the reputation and status of men above the safety of women. Okay, safety of women. Let's look at this really quick. Okay, she claims to want women to be safe, but she's encouraging women to be highly promiscuous, which opens them up for more trauma. She resents the nuclear family and the patriarchs, which provide a healthy community and safety net for women when they become mothers and for little girls, right? So she has a sort of lesbian-esque utopia of like a Rick and Morty episode where they go to a planet where it's all women and the men are all subjugated. It's very bizarre when you start to notice the pattern of the way she is. So, status of men above the safety of women, she contends, right? I think it's smart for women to be safer, but they want to go to parties and use drugs. I just literally saw a video, I think it was today or yesterday. No, it was yesterday. 2 drug addicts using fentanyl, and somebody captured, as soon as the one guy like dipped out from the drugs, the other guy essayed him. No one helped. And it was on the sidewalk in Hollywood, in California. Okay? And that guy's gonna wake up, right, when he's done being high and realize he's got tearing on his you-know-what. And I'd say that's another sign of how promiscuity, drug use, partying creates a lot of evil in the world. The safety of little boys is important. And little boys and little girls and elderly women, you name it, they all get abused in some way in the medical industry, in old folks' homes, in a number of ways. And I think it has to do with evil. I don't think it has to do with the status of men. I just don't see that in America. Maybe she's hinting at, you know, women here are fully liberated to do the most disgusting things. California literally decriminalized loitering for sex work. Okay? And these women go over there and wear thongs in the street. Okay? Alright? And they stand around waiting for customers. It's crazy how they put themselves in danger's way. Okay? For the lowest of men. And only a low man would pay for a woman. It's just... It's astounding how she has, like, no self-reflection here. She doesn't see the irony. She claims to care about the safety of women, yet wants to get rid of the patriarchs. It's like, she wants like a all-female police force. It's just strange. Many abusers on some level do not know that what they are doing is wrong. No, I think they do know it's wrong. Okay? And they like to do it because it is wrong. Because they are evil. They feed off the pain. They feed off the suffering. They know it. They like it. That's why they do it. Okay? This is what happens when you don't acknowledge that there's evil in the world. Because to say something is evil is to hint at spirituality. It's to acknowledge Shaitan. Okay? But she hates religion, as she mentioned earlier. And she really hates Christians, as she mentioned earlier. So for her, she's got to say, like, well, it must be because they don't know they're doing wrong. No. When someone is screaming in pain for you to stop, they're fighting back for you to stop, and you continue, and you know in your head what you're doing is wrong, but they proceed anyways, because they don't care how you feel. It feels good for them to do it to you, so that's all they care about. They're selfish and evil. So come on. They believe that they are basically decent. Most men who prey on women have had that belief confirmed over the course of years or decades of abuse. They believe they're basically decent. And a whole lot of other people believe they're basically decent too. They're nice guys who just have a problem with women, or booze, or their mothers, or all three. So, notice here, or booze, which means alcohol. Alright? Islam says, you know, no intoxicants. She would get mad at a patriarchal figure being sober and, you know, not telling and encouraging a woman to not drink, right? Guiding his womenfolk to not drink. Looking out for her to see who she married. Is she a drunkard? We gotta watch out, okay? But if a man gets drunk, you should divorce. Women should only marry sober men. But again, they don't learn. Or they met them in a nightclub. Reframing serial abuse as a mental health issue stashes it conveniently on the high shelf mark somebody else's problem. That's a good point. You know, if someone is a serial abuser, find ways to get them locked up. The trouble is that sickness does not obviate social responsibility. It never has. Okay, so wait, hold up. So she's mad about serial abuse. Okay, I wonder what she thinks about the Second Amendment. I wonder what she thinks about the death penalty. If you want abuse to stop, you gotta challenge and roar and scare that bear away. Okay, you can't. Sometimes you can hide, right? Avoid the bear as it goes by. Sometimes when you're confronted with the mountain lion on the hiking trail, you must challenge. You must go forward and scare it off, overpower it, in a way. Okay. So, women having the Second Amendment training, knowing how to use it, okay, stand your ground laws, castle doctrine laws, those things help women. But who is slowly itching away at women being able to have firearms to protect themselves? It's the liberals. Sickness might give a person the overwhelming urge to act in repulsive ways. But sickness does not cover for them during the business meetings or payoffs their lawyers, or make sure they get women dropped from films. I mean, it's pretty scary how in Hollywood women have to do, you know, sexual things in order to get spots. But hopefully you get more female executives and that can stop. But how do we know that female executives won't see someone like Kit Harington or Jason Momoa and make them do something? You know, that's what's scary. You know, handsome men, they get harassed constantly by men and women in Hollywood. It just seems like a very degenerate place, unfortunately. It takes a village to protect an R-wordist. Rapist. I am perfectly willing to accept that toxic masculinity, there it is, as one leaves a lot of broken men in its wake. No, lack of masculinity leads to broken men. Okay, so what's the opposite of toxic masculinity? It's healthy, feminized men. If you switch the language here. Do women want feminized men? K-pop stars, right? Emo guys who, you know, like to wear pink once in a while. I don't know about that. Can you rely on a feminized, emasculated man as much as a pious, masculine man who has work ethic? I'm not sure. And also, let's say this. If single mothers are growing, they're raising little boys. Majority of public school teachers are women. Little boys are constantly around women. They don't have father figures. Okay? A woman can't teach a boy how to be a man. And the schools are not really designed to help boys be boys. So, is it toxic masculinity that the boys have? Or is it a lack of masculinity? It's a serious question. Because they don't know how to manage their emotions. A man cannot copy a woman and how they express their emotions. It's too messy. That culture conspires to prevent men and boys from being able to handle their sexuality. Actually, well, she claims toxic masculinity, you know, doesn't tell boys how to handle their sexuality. So from her perspective, she thinks that healthy masculinity would teach them how to handle it. But it's just the way in which she's wording it, right? Because when you say toxic masculinity, you can say masculinity that expresses itself in a toxic way, or you can just say masculinity in and of itself is toxic. So it really depends on how she's using it, isn't it? Their aggression and their fear of rejection. Oh yes, so aggression has to be channeled. The fear of rejection isn't the problem, it's how they react when they are rejected. And loss of status in any adult way. I mean, loss of status hurts. To fall down the pyramid to the bottom and bang your head on them rocks is gonna hurt. Women too. You think a woman who was like on the top doesn't spiral, into something mentally unhinged when she loses her money and her lifestyle? Come on now. Women will shave their head and just rage out and start just chugging Chardonnay and Adderall when they lose their fame. That the modern world makes it unbearable, at times, to exist inside a male body without constant validation. But very few men, very few people, period, grow up with a wholly healthy attitude towards their own gender. And everyone with effed up ideas about women goes on to do effed up things to women. Toxic masculinity, as Bancroft observed, is a social illness before it is a psychological one. So she claims toxic masculinity is a social illness. So when I read this, I see masculinity as an illness. Because you have to pay attention to the doublespeak these people do. Their rhetorics. Okay? And if you see how she complains about patriarchs, the nuclear family, Christianity, straight men, you begin to see where she's stabbing at. Okay? So clearly she thinks heterosexual men are toxically masculine. She thinks Christian men who are heterosexual are toxically masculine. Okay? So what would she say about a black Muslim who's got 4 wives and is heterosexual? You see where this goes? So don't let them fool you. Don't let her fool you. But may Allah bless and preserve the masculine men of the Muslim Ummah, and may women repent, change their ways, become more chaste, leave off hookup culture. May men stay loyal to their wives, not commit adultery, and to keep doing good, and to resist the propaganda that these feminists have pushed. Don't actively display your female desire. You'll attract the wrong men. I know it's a paradox. I know it's a paradox. But be careful of what kind of men you attract, because you will be pushing a curse on your kids if you don't get the right type of father figure for them. Okay? Very interesting section. She goes on and on and on. But at least she's on the pulse of their rhetoric and agenda, so that we can accurately see what the modern expression of their rad femme culture is. By the way, if you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.